And now I give the floor to the esteemed panelists. Please introduce yourself quickly. And what is actually your relation to tokenization, guys? What do you do in tokenization? Yeah, just start with you, Bonart.
Hi, it's nice to be here. I'm Bonart Matti, Chief Growth Officer at Obligate. As the name suggests, responsible to expanding the Obligate ecosystem. I've been in traditional finance space for many years. I then switched over to founding and scaling several fintech startups, also in the crypto space. Have also like a tech background, and yeah, I'm fascinated about technology, and this is where DLT kind of fascinates me, and that's why I joined Obligate to basically make something tangible and the use case that's worth aiming for.
Guido, what do you tokenize?
First, I would like to ask who was here this morning at 9 o'clock? Only a few, so I have to introduce myself again. Okay. First of all, according to the intro, I'm supporting the cosmic network of Annika with the avatar we have seen before. So this was the reason of my relation to token, because I did the freedom to write a draft how to make a token, a new token, and to include in this token humans and their values and also ideas. So normally non-tangible, non-measurable tokens, and how to find a solution that you can give them a value which is accepted and which increases the value of the network. And this was the idea behind. My record is I was very early the first president of Shapeshift, and by occasion I was part in the boards of a lot of blockchain projects like Tezos, Cardano, Cosmos Interchain, Bancor, and Lisk. And there I have still in some of them my fingers in. I added some more like Volt, which is a marketplace, audit chain. So I'm really a blockchain enthusiast. My background is I'm a lawyer and an economist, but I never worked really in a law firm, and I took the position of a legal rebel, or telling law firms what I like to have. And all of that, together with a little bit AI now, which is coming on my schedule, and blockchain, I try to move our ecosystem in a positive way. And my token relation is part of some of the projects.
Okay, that's a great. Cosmic is also a project that I really love. Eugene, what does your project tokenize?
Well, before we begin, I think it's more interesting to talk about the bull market and how much Bitcoin is going to make all of us rich, and so that we can buy our Lambos next year. But let's be more serious. So I'm the also the founding partner of DWF Labs. So thank you for coming. I see a lot of familiar faces, friends, co-workers, and last year when Andre and I and the team we here last year, we're like, hey, it's Ripple, Soccer, so cool. They're all having this house, and maybe we hit certain KPIs, our revenue and the partnerships. Let's do something like this. To really share, what if achieve, and obviously to bring together the brightest minds together collectively, and how do we actually progress, crypto as organization, from a CRYPTO2030 perspective. So my name is Eugene. I'm Singaporean, from Singapore, very sunny, not used to the cold weather like this today, but certainly will make this as fun and lively as possible. So thank you again for spending your cold winter with us. I'm also a co-founder of OpenEden in the heights of the bear market, when there was a lot of mistrust. Post-FTX, the implosion of trust, the 3 Cs of the world. And here, OpenEden, we built the first native on-chain T-bill vault that allow people, institutional investors, to mint tokens, T-bill tokens that represents tokenized US money market fund, seamlessly, instant minting, settlement on-chain, reducing the friction, rewriting the traditional finance settlement system, and really changing the way of how we look at finance today. And this is why it excites me, while I have my DeFi or DGen, hat sometimes, and with DWF, but the compliant me, the guy who wants to run a marathon for the next 10 years, I think tokenization is here to stay. Like Larry Fling, which I'm sure we've all heard. everything will be tokenized, and I truly believe that will happen. So thank you, and I'm happy to dive into tokenization, Bitcoin prices, and meme coins, whatever interests the crowd today.
Okay, thanks a lot. We are covering actually with Liechtenstein, the EU market, Switzerland, Singapore, and right now coming to US. We have like almost the whole world covered, or let's say the major market covered in our panel for tokenization purposes too. Who knows? Alexander, please go ahead.
I'm more of a Dubai, Malta guy, but...
Oh, that's the next market to cover. That's great. We could have even 5. That's just so great. Yeah.
So Alex Filatov, I'm CEO of the company called EverX, which is doing layer 1, actually 2 layer 1 protocols. And we focus a lot on tokenization as we design, the protocols, thinking about scalability and the other important things, finality of the protocol can be important as well. And I'm advising and also a small shareholder in a couple of tokenization projects. One in the US, which is tokenizing Miami real estate, like buying, physical, commercial, and residential real estate, and then tokenization and putting DeFi instruments on top of that. And also a project in Europe which does a euro-based stablecoin, actually the largest currently in TVL. You have a lot of dollar-based stablecoins, but there is, believe it or not, one in euro, not in Swiss francs that I know of, but maybe an opportunity. But to add to the humor, one of my first exposures was tokenization was back in 2017, when everybody, and I'm sure everybody in this room remembers that, was trying to do ICO of every kind. And actually there is one very attractive person, I will not mention the sex of that person, came to me and said that he or she wants to tokenize the sexuality. And I said, so what exactly do you mean tokenize sexuality? He said, well, just, I have a lot of sexual energy and we can issue the tokens, and whoever can get hold of that token can get access to that energy. I'm not going to elaborate what exactly it means.
Funny enough, this would be legal in Switzerland.
Would that be legal? That's because I said we're not doing this. Why did
I asked, where's the fun then?
might be legal in Switzerland.
So the point being is, think of tokenization of real world assets in the very broad terms, not the ones with inherent value, but also with some questionable value potentially as well.
Okay, great. I would suggest that we move to, let's say, the sexiest part of this story about the size of the market, because that is the reason why we are discussing this issue, right? Because this seems to be a growing or emerging market, and that's why we all want to be part of it and make this story happen. And also, well, there are several forecasts like McKinsey and other reports, and they assume that these markets of tokenization, particularly real-world assets, is worth billions, if 3.5 trillion to 10 trillion. Do you guys believe it?
Sure.
That's a Swiss answer. Could you elaborate a little bit, like what's your opinion, what you have read? Because also part of the story is to give the audience and to create for ourselves a 360-degree view of the whole story, which is happening right now with tokenization. So what's your view? What's your forecast that you believe in?
The forecast, since we discussed tokenization over the last years, always there were statistics, and don't believe any further statistics you have not falsified yourself. So I think it's a high expectation. But the grounding is quite quick, because first of all, if you create or want to tokenize something, which I fully support, it's a brilliant market, it could be a huge market, but the first edge I'm coming to is at least that it's a security in most of the cases, and then have a regulatory impact, and a lot of parts in the world are not allowing it in a proper way. And the second thing is tokenization. If I have not a separated or isolated project, then at least it needs the mass adoption. And this means I need wallet accesses, platforms, which really allow everybody to be part of it. And this is the second part which is missing, to give token an added value. The problem is a lot of people want to tokenize something, and there's no added value, because they could also buy shares, or they could also become member, and don't need a tokenization. So tokenization has to be, like you said, sexy and very sexy and attractive, but therefore we need the regulation freedom and the wallet. As soon as it comes up, our curve goes up, and then the figures are real, like people talking about 200,000 for the Bitcoin. But first, the the place, the fundament must be there. And as long as it's not there, the figure is just a nice figure. Somebody wants to make a nice statistic, then get some followers.
You actually touched one of the last questions, like what are the obstacles of the tokenization? Guys, you could elaborate on those. Do you believe in the size of the market? What's your forecasts and the obstacles that you see?
I mean, I'm looking at the 2023 numbers, if anybody is interested. So tokenized commodities, 1.1 billion. Tokenized securities, 370 million. Tokenized real estate, 160 million. And of course, the largest is the credit, 6.5 billion. And yeah, the conclusion, of course, is that the largest is the securities, but there are a lot of hurdles that I guess we're going to talk about. If securities are tokenized, it can be up to 14 trillion US dollars.
That's so true. Okay, so
I think to answer that question, it's also important to look at the key drivers, right, to help us to get there, to get to the mass adoption, right? So at one side, you could argue for the, let's take, for example, the bullish scenario, right? The 10 trillion scenario that you were putting into the room. So there, regulatory certainty is number one, obviously. So you need to qualify it as a security or not. So it needs to be certain. Luckily, in Switzerland, we have the most advanced DLT laws in the world. So we as Obligate decided to use this law as a basis to issue on-chain bonds natively. So we do not tokenize existing bonds or securities, but rather create them natively on-chain. And we knew from the beginning this is a security. And the DLT law, or the Swiss law, allows you basically, as a company, from anywhere in the world to issue debt instruments on-chain. And you know, it's clear, it's a security, it can be traded by investors, where you make sure that they are onboarded, of course. So we're talking about permissioned infrastructures. So one is regulatory, the second is interoperability and the trusted DLT infrastructures. As we see come more and more, you know, standards around smart contracts and everything. And then third is stablecoins. The adoption of the stablecoins, that we can also handle this settlement on-chain and not have like frictions with the off-chain world. And I think where a game changer we see is also the commercial bank digital money that will help us to reduce these frictions and also have more seamless processes within, you know, like transactions such as on-off ramp. And in order to have these transactions purely on-chain, so yeah.
And for me, I think it's going to surprise many people, right? Like, you know, how much value that, you know, prices of meme coin or the bond on Solana, like, it surprised me. Like, you know, how do we actually value meme coins in the market? Why are people buying meme coins? Why is there a price on it? Why is there a price on culture? How do you know, buy culture, right? That's buy meme coins. And to that, you know, like the internet, right? All these big companies from Microsoft to Apple to, you know, the big tech, we're all surprised, you know, how big, $1 trillion market cap, how big they've grown. And I think tokenization is going to surprise a lot of people. Like, it's not just about securities, but it's going to tokenize everything, like from security to painting to sexual energy, as you have mentioned. Everything, right? And that is not a question of, you know, I like to say this, it's not if, it's actually when, right? I think, you know, to touch on that point, it's really, you know, like TCP/IP, right? Like internet, like pets.com, you know, during pets.com, it didn't work because the .com infrastructure wasn't ready. But right now, I think, you know, STO, which was called STO in 2017, but today it's real world assets, which I still find it challenging that it's called real world assets. Like, what do you mean by real world assets? You mean NFTs not real world assets? Like Bitcoin not real world assets? Like, what does that mean? And I really think it's the infrastructure that we have, both regulatory, from a tech, that has changed in the last 4, 5, 6 years, that has really enabled us to move so much in a short span of 4 or 5 years.
Sure. Well, just to add a couple of points on both, I truly believe in tokenization. We have been talking 2016, 2017, everything what can be tokenized will be tokenized. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. I really love your inputs about the obstacles, but let's say holding up the scaling of the market, the privately issued CBDCs, when they will be there. All the settlement on chain is one of our dreams, all of us, I guess. And also, in my opinion, is the secondary market. As far as I know, and you can correct me, guys, what do you know about the secondary market for security tokens? Because mainly all of the use cases, most of the use cases for the tokenization of real-world assets is nothing but good old securitization as we know it. And then, of course, you have a question about the depository and actually the secondary market, the secondary trading. We have SDX. We have maybe Taurus who has the licenses. We have DLT pilot regime, which is there, but the trading facilities are not there. And we have a bunch of, let's say, exchanges in the gray area, Bermuda, Bahama, whichever you name. And guys, if you know of any other secondary trading platforms, regulated secondary trading platforms, they would be really helpful if you could add it to the picture. But I believe this is also one of the obstacles which is really holding up security token offerings, tokenization of real-world assets from really scaling. And let's move to the next question, guys. What can be tokenized and what kind of use cases you have seen so far, a part of sexuality? Sorry, you mentioned that one, and just keep on mentioning it. What have you seen so far, and what are the assets which have the most potential? Where's the biggest market, in your opinion? I don't know, real estate, physical art, digital art, you name it. What's your opinion on what are the assets which can be tokenized, and where is the biggest market? What's the most attractive for the next move?
So yeah, I mean, in our everything can be tokenized, right? So as we've learned today, and also previously, but if you look at characteristics of assets, like where it would make sense to tokenize things is like where you have high value or a high investment threshold of the assets. For example, real estate or art and collectibles, or bonds is like not something that is accessible to retail investor as such in an easy way. We have illiquid assets such as art and collectibles where it would make sense to tokenize things. You have, everywhere where you need some authenticity, where there are efficiencies or inefficiencies in place right now, today. So if you look, I'm just taking bonds as an example because we're active in the space. So if you look at the traditional finance bond issuance and like settlement, you need up to 13 intermediaries. You have the financial market infrastructure, you have all the paying agents, issuing agents, law firms, custody banks, and all this type of players, right? There, it just makes sense to disrupt these models and bring in the efficiencies that technology allows us to do, right? So yeah, it's about bonds, it's about stocks, where it makes sense to tokenize things. So yeah, real estate, bonds, in my opinion, capital market instruments, and art and collectibles.
What are the successful cases also that you have seen so far? Just mention what's most interesting for you.
I think for me, tokenization is a term we use very freely, like a friend. I'm a friend of yours, but you're just name dropping, right? And I think what's really interesting is, what do we exactly solve with tokenization? And in our case, in OpenEden, we created an on-chain vault based on EIP 4626. And that's really interesting because if you subscribe to a US mutual fund, like let's just say Fidelity or BlackRock, you have to, on board, you have to wire your US dollars, and you have to wait for T+1, your third-party agent, registry, blah, blah. But with OpenEden, in our case, you're literally streamlining that process cutting off all those different intermediaries. And that's really the beauty of tokenization. You are actually not adding layers of complexity, layers of cost, layers of additional risk, by reducing all of that in a very streamlined, peer-to-peer fashion, powered by blockchain and smart contract technologies, which we are also interested. And beyond that big number, like, hey, it could be $1 trillion, it could be the biggest opportunity. The biggest opportunity set, I think, and as well as, feel free to debate and argue with me, but it has to be something that's easily understood by people today. If you're tokenizing a private credit fund or a real estate, like, how do these guys know? Like, you have additional issuer risk, you have to understand the underlying instrument, you have to be really good in risk management, really good in analysis, and it has to be something simple, and that's why at OpenEden, we focus on US Treasury market. If you don't trust the US government, then hey, we have bigger problems, which I think we do, which is why we're all here, but it's the biggest bond market. It's literally the risk-free rate in the world, which is any mom and pop, my grandfather, my great-grandfather, they all understand what US Treasury bill, right? It's the full faith and confidence of the US government. So we need to tokenize something that's easily understood, that people may not argue, hey, is this issuer reliable? What's his track record? No, it's the US government. There is no questions asked. But what's more important is the legal structuring. How does the issuer actually structure and pass through the legal rights, the claim on those rights, the subordination deed, and the yield? And those is, in my opinion, more pertinent to how we assess. In today's market, there is a lot of guys like me trying to tokenize US Treasury market, but that's like stablecoin. Everybody say you are stablecoin, but let's be honest. I would say that most stablecoins are not stable. Just because somebody say that tokenized US money market fund, it isn't really a US money market fund. It could be a lending collateral arrangement. It could be a lending borrowing where it doesn't really give you the ownership rights. But what's more important is that we here today understand the risks of the spectrum, understand what we're investing and what's the promise of this technology, and then we're able to really address what's the biggest opportunity. In our case, it's Treasury bills. And Treasury bills is a massive market. It's a trillions of dollars. It's a 28 trillion. I'm losing count. It's a massive market. Overnight turnover volume is $400 billion. $400 billion is a $29, $30 trillion market. And that itself is a great opportunity. And why? Because, we have clients in Turkey, we have clients in Portugal, we have clients even in Asia where they cannot access US Treasury bills. And that's such a simple product, but yet their governments, for obvious reasons, are not allowing access, which, clearly why, which is why we're very focused on T-bills today.
Okay, that's an interesting use case, tokenizing, let's say, existing securities which are just not accessible to certain target audiences. And Alex, you had a use case about real estate. Could you?
Yeah. Well, just looking at the numbers today, as we mentioned, the biggest success case so far has been the lending protocols with guys like MakerDAO, making sure that there are real world assets tokenized back in the lendings, just to avoid, the things that we saw with some of the players in the space. But talking, for example, real estate, just to visualize it, and I'm going to simplify a little bit. So imagine Davos. Imagine I'm just walking, over the promenade. I see this Belvedere, and I believe in the fantastic model of Belvedere because they're making so much money during Davos. There is no way you're going to buy part of Belvedere, but imagine if it's tokenized and you can take your phone and push the button, geolocation, Belvedere, and get 0.0001%, and you can do it across the world. Of course, it's not possible today. Tons of legal challenges, cross-border harmonization issues, but this is like, if we're speaking long term, that can be the future. That in your portfolio on the phone, you can just buy any real estate in the world. What we do practically today is we're helping folks from Argentina. That's a very focused, business model where there is a crazy inflation to protect their savings by buying real estate in Miami. So again, very focused model. So Argentina, I buy stake in that property, and my $1,000 to $5,000, are protected against the inflation, linked to the dollar, essentially linked to the growth of the Miami marketplace, where I might also move one day. So that's a very practical and very visual and simple business model.
Okay, great. Thank you a lot. So we've discussed what can be tokenized, existing security as some kind of, let's say, intangible rights which a certain person has as a personal kind of capitalization. real estate for sure, debt or equity, traditional debt of equity, any kind can be tokenized, while a tokenization could bring additional advantages. By the way, what are they in your
Contribute
opinion?
as well?
Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
Yeah, the tokenization, I have for now a project I'm supporting where we tokenize Porsche and in racing, so then afterwards you have your token, but also a part of the Porsche after the racing season. I would like to add to your tokenization, don't forget services. All kind of services can be tokenized and give you the access as an individual person to participate in business processes which you're normally not in or which you normally cannot be part of it because you don't have the full volume. So this is for me another topic. And to give a little bit the general guideline, I think if you don't want to attract only funds or financial institutions on this tokenization, if you really want to go out and get a little bit more, the first thing is it should be a tokenization which fits to your behavior. So if we are all here and you mentioned the soul of blockchain in a decentralized world, an individual world, it's very good that we give tokenization where you can fill up your portfolio with these tokens. But it doesn't fit to that if we think that the combination with the central currencies which are coming now out help for it, because then you give away your freedom, because there you have due dates on the money. You have ranges of the money which can be controlled, and this people don't want to it. So this is another topic where I don't think that people will be attracted if we have any direct relation to it. And the next one is the general rule in all businesses, game and bread and games. So for people, if you really want to go out, we have to think what they want. So I took some advices on token projects to say, give them something at the end, physical, which they can hang up at the home or which they can collect, which is tangible. Because here all the nerds with the phones in the rows, you're fine with your phones, but a lot of people are not fine with it. They want, if they invest in something, want to feel something. And if you don't give them the feeling that they have a part of anything, and maybe best to document it, then you will fail. But if you give this combination between real world and tokenization, fun, bread and games, then a lot of people will go for it. And I think these are the criteria you should go if you want to do a new tokenization project.
Absolutely. I have also a question for you. Like a lot of projects come to us, I don't know, real estate, real world assets, and not only real world assets, that they want to tokenize something. What would be the process? How you would describe like the main important pure project management thing? Really pragmatic, practical stuff. Like someone wants to tokenize something. What are the most important parts of the project that they have to think about, plan, and budget?
Maybe in the example of Rob, right? If you were to tokenize him, that was your idea, right?
Yes.
So let's see how that works. What is the first step?
Valuation, obviously. The first step is figuring out the value.
Moderator.
Yeah, this is a specific case, but I wrote a kind of first draft of a white paper for this token to how to manage it, but this is more a niche topic. I can talk about it, but I think if we are on a general topic, it doesn't fit. So I don't want to hide, we can discuss it, but for the general tokenization, I think the first thing is you have to think about where is a need of tokenization, where's the fun of tokenization, which is my target group, so at least the catalog of the normal entrepreneurs starting with it. And then if you come to second level, then you have to go to good lawyers like you are, and then to find out how does it fit with the regulation, which country is a good one. I don't see a couple of countries outside like BVIs are not as shady. It's just the liberty of an entrepreneur to go to places where you can do your business. And what is, as a businessman, what I have to find out, where can I do my business? And if I cannot do it in one country, I have to find another country. It's the chemical industry, pharmaceutical industry, weapon industry, highly regulated industries, they all just find where is the best place to do my business. Where can I do it? And then for sure you have to find good measurements. Then you have to go and see that you get marketplaces where you can exchange it, that you have traffic, that you have no token dump in the beginning, that you don't find a system where just some traders dump your token and then the token fails. So there's a full catalog in an entrepreneurial things with risk management and everything something you have to do on it and to go for it. But the first thing is look to the customers here and say, who of you would join this and that token project?
Absolutely, absolutely. Looking at your target audience and also where they are located.
Yeah.
That's what a lot of projects oversee. Like they say, I don't know, we use BVI, we use DIFC, and then I'm asking like, but where are your investors? They are in US. Guys, then you go to US lawyers and get your structure done, most likely there. What do you think about, I mean, mostly tokenization is used in a lot of cases for some kind of fundraising. What do you think about involving, and is it a part of the project, marketing and also investors' relations? Is it important?
Yeah.
Maybe you from VNTR Capital could also comment on that. I guess you support some of the projects which raise funds.
Yeah, of course, it's critical. I mean, that's essential to the project success. I would probably add on top of that the whole legal framework, which is important in the context of tokenization. Everything like linking the physical asset with the token, all the things, the cross-border implications, taxation. So there are a lot of things to think about, but those two are spot on. I think the key kind of things you need to figure out for the success.
Absolutely. So just to sum it up, so what we have seen from our experience working with the project, let's say a lot of projects, like we do, for example, UK real estate tokenization platform, funny enough, in Liechtenstein, because they want to reach out to European investors. They come to us, what do we need to do? What are the steps? And in a lot of projects, especially in web, let's say native Web3 guys, they do not understand it. It is quite a process. I would say that tokenization, especially of real world assets, is something between the private equity and the IPO in terms of time, money, efforts that you need to put in. Because there is a legal part, there is a technical part. The platform, you still need to program it. You still have to do the KYC properly, and this also needs to be automized. And then the most important, you need to have investors or buyers for those tokens. And that's what a lot of projects oversee too. So marketing and investors relations should be also budgeted and prepared properly. That's what I always have as takeaway from some of the projects that we work with. So what are
there have been so many token projects also in the past, and they all have now the problem to get investors, because investors go for AI or they go for token projects and say, oh, what's new? I've seen it 10 times, 100 times, and you can come up with some key performance indicators and stuff. Okay, some investors say, okay, I might be jumping in, but if you really want to attract investors today, you have to come up with something which is new, something which is unique, where they say, wow, this is something which really goes up to the sky, and this we haven't seen here. And this is the largest challenge in the investor finding.
Yeah, for me, I think it's going back to your point, it's really, it's your customers, right? Like at OpenEden, when we first launched, it was focused on private credit, and we find that business model because we ask 20 of our potential customers, like, would you invest in A, B, C, D, E, right? And 95% they say treasury bonds, right? Bills and US money market funds. So it's always about the customers. It's never about the tech. Like internet is powered by TCP/IP and all this fancy technology. Like Apple phone is built by crazy technologies, but we only care about the user experience and what does that solve for the user, what sort of pain points, and whether is it, are you Web 2, Web 3, Web 4 even, it's always the customers that you're building for. So if you want to sell a product and just say, hey, it's a tokenized product, so you should buy it. No, it's never that. It's always who your customers are. And I strongly believe in that.
And just building on that point, maybe 2 cents from me. Good projects, and that's the one that I'm seeing now in the US that I mentioned, where you have, typically in crypto, we have supply, and then we pray that demand will come. In many cases, let's put it this way. They do it the other way around. There is a demand, let's say, some Argentinian folks that don't want to buy $20 million worth of assets, and then they buy a piece of commercial real estate for 10 million. So you have double demand versus a supply, and then a very clear added value, like, democratization of access, gamification, whatever is the legal framework, etc., etc. So when you have demand exceeding supply, and you have clear added value, those two pieces are very critical, I think, for the very simple steps to success of the project.
Okay, great,
I
great.
can only support this. So legal and tech engineering is just given. You need to master that in order to be successful in tokenization projects. And then it's really about following the money. So the investors will dictate what kind of use cases, what kind of, also pain points are solved by using technology. And the tech and legal part just has to disappear in the background, be there, do its job, to have legal certainty. But as a user, you just don't care what is behind and how it's done. It just needs to be done and need to be compliant. So I think also one of the challenges is for us as a space, as an industry, to make this, applications and infrastructure as seamless as possible and have the complexity in the background.
Absolutely. I believe that's all of us, the goal of all of us to help to streamline those processes with tokenization so that the market can scale for all of us. And I also would like to give you maybe an overview or just an input if we're talking about the pragmatic side of tokenization. Let's say I would like to tokenize a building or tokenize debt or equity, some kind of traditional security, but just put a token as a wrapper around it. And we would talk about different jurisdiction, and I need a quote from you, approximately the costs, and a timeline. I'll start with my example, Liechtenstein. If you tokenize some kind of real world assets, I don't know, starting from 5 million, the cost, if you would like to have the prospectus for EU, would be something around 30K, and the timeline is 3 months on average, but it depends a lot on how you guys deliver, because if the projects under-deliver, the lawyers and the tech team under-delivers too. And the timeline is yes, from 3 to 6 months. Given that example, it would be great if you could give this kind of input to the audience. Switzerland, Singapore, Dubai, US, BVI, or any kind of jurisdiction that you have liked so far in your use cases.
So we have looked into this very granularly and also in detail. I already mentioned the multiple intermediaries that are involved in this process, the law firms, the prospectus that you need to come up with, right, in order to issue bonds. So that makes only, in the example of debt instruments or bonds, issuances from 100 million and above economically viable. Because you have this fixed cost, you have certain, all these intermediaries, the fees that are involved in the process. So in our case, we can reduce the cost by almost 5 times just by using DL technology, the platform, the issuance settlement platform, the smart contracts, and also in the case of self-custody, it's even more you can save, but in case you want, and it's recommended to have an institutional grade like custodial wallet, up to 5 times, and your life within weeks, not months. Like even 5 times faster.
Even getting the prospectus registered with 6.
Well, okay, that's the only bottleneck. But in case of when you're dealing with qualified investors, you don't need a...
Yeah, with a private placement, it can be done literally within weeks. But then you mainly target qualified investors or use some other exemptions from FINSA or from EU prospectus regulation in this case. But what's approximately the quote starting from?
Quotes in terms of CHF?
No, yeah, in terms of money, in terms of fiat money. I don't know, starting 30K, 50K approximately.
For 100 million issuance, I would say 150K to 200K.
Okay, something. It depends then on the amount of issuance. Good. Guido, what would be the jurisdiction that you could suggest for tokenizing debt or equity, let's say on average, in general, what could be the cost and the timeline?
If you're at least free according to your assets and not related to a specific area, like I said, services or also anything which is more flexible, then there are, at least for me, still the Caribbean's a very good place. It's a very simple setup. The company, the corporate, it's about 10, 15K, maybe a little bit of a running cost for the first year, maybe another 5. And then you have at least to set up the technical setup, but there you can use already existing solutions. So, and then the rest is, the remaining part is marketing and promoting everything and bringing it on the surface. And maybe if depends a little bit where your team is really located, then you need lawyers that you're not pulled in this regulation by your team or by the setup. So I would say maybe for 200,000 you can do it, and if you're a very easy topic where you don't need any location, you can even do it for 100.
Yeah, you mean legal costs plus maybe tech plus marketing? No, legal costs only.
I can do a tokenization project even with maybe 2-3 people. Yeah. But I can also do it with 30 people. So it always depends. Like when you're buying a car, you can buy a Polo, or you can buy a Porsche. It depends a little bit how many people you want to attract into your business plan. But according to fixed costs, I would say in a very simple case, below 100. And if you really do a little bit marketing and everything on top, you can start with 200. Because AI is supporting you on marketing, and they can do very cheap marketing campaigns. And it depends a little bit also if it's a self-runner, if it's something which is so cool, so super, that everybody jumps on it, then it goes. See some token projects, not on tokenization, but token projects coming out with just shit, but they had perfect marketing. Everybody wants to add that. Or games, Pokemon, or anything before. You can do it with very low. So check out where the best ways are to do it cheap.
Okay, Caribbean, good. So what about Singapore, Asian markets, approximately cost and timeline? Just an average something to give an understanding to the audience.
Yeah, I mean, the quote I like to say, and I used to come from banking, spent 10 years in banking, so, you pay peanuts, you get monkeys, right? So I think clearly,
you pay peanuts, you get monkeys.
Yeah, so I think it's sort of, people get it, right? I mean, there's obviously a range, but, I can't really say what's a good range and what's a fair price, legal opinion and structuring and clients, they all varies, right? So, in our case, because we also own a regulated BVI private fund, which is easy to set up, right? But what's more interesting is that we own an investment management license. It's equivalent of a broker-dealer in the US. It's like RIA, which is not about the cost. Again, it's really interacting with the regulators, which is, pardon my French, can be painful at times. And, so I think that's the cost. Depending on the structuring, depending on clients, depending on how, on a risk spectrum, how compliant you want to be, the cost is actually more than the monetary outlay. Is actually your commitment to respond to regulators on a timely basis. Is respond to keeping to certain criteria and whatnot. And that is a cost that is not really accounted for. And I've known so many, compliant, blockchain-related, startups where they've given up their licensing because it was a painful journey for them, right? And I think that's something that, as a friendly advice, that if you want to go down that path of getting your own investment management license, which 90% of my competitors don't, then you obviously have to pay the price. But, I like to always believe it's a marathon that we're running here and it's not a sprint, right? The other thing is also legal cost is one thing, but with Liquidapps, I can share as well. Building a product, it's one, but getting the product into the hands of a customer is another, and that cost is actually a big variable, right? Not everybody's like my partner Andre, who's obviously a Twitter celebrity, but it's a cost of doing business, right? How are you engaging? How do you go to market? How do you speak to influencers? How do you work with channels, business channels? Like in OpenEden's case, we work with Standard Chartered-backed Zodiac Custody to distribute our product. We're one of the first few real-world asset product working in Standard Chartered Bank Zodiac Custody. And that's the beginning of our journey to work with institutional, players like them and to distribute product. And that's a cost to bring that sort of business, right? You got to have business-friendly API. So for me, legal costs it's really how much you want to spend, and obviously expensive law firms deserve a certain price. And for us, we only have a Singapore entity that is an investment management company, which is easy setup, but obviously the cost comes in a variety of sort of places, right?
Okay.
Just maybe to bring a new aspect into the discussion, there is also always a learning curve. Pioneers in the space spend, months and years in figuring out the legalities of the thing, etc., etc. But what's going to help to move faster down the learning curve is the emerging infrastructure. That's one of the emerging segments, infrastructure for tokenization. We're going to be seeing, white label solutions, platforms that allow you tokenization out of the box. I can give one example. I'm helping the project which is allowing you to do crypto and fiat bank with Visa, MasterCard's relationships, with SEPA, with everything, with legal wrapper, with KYC provided as also solution, like in 3 days for $150,000. If you look at the crypto Swiss banks, SEPA, Signum, and the other ones, well, it took maybe 3 years and millions of Swiss francs to figure it out. And now we can do it in 3 days for 150K, kind of, similar quality. So we're going to see something similar in the space, tokenization space.
I wonder how long those fast banks, sorry, I'm being kind of rude and provocative, but I always wonder how those licenses, which you can get really fast, would last in a worst case scenario. Sorry for things like that. But
you don't get it. You get the solution out of the box. So you don't own anything. You have your client base.
But you have the license, banking license, or
they have. The provider has.
Oh, that's the white label solution. Then. Okay, that's okay then. Okay.
Yeah. You cannot get a license in 3 days.
Yeah, I believe so. Thank you a lot to our esteemed panelists for answering all of the questions, for believing in the future of tokenization.